Now we'll start talking about the components or parts of culture. I know. I said an audio clip. Maybe on the next one. But the reason why I want to do a video clip for this one is because I want to demonstrate how symbols work. Because that's the first part of culture we're going to define. So symbols refer to anything that carries a particular meaning recognized by people who share culture. Now let's break that down. Anything that carries a particular meaning recognized by people who share culture. So when we share the same culture, we know what this finger, I'm going to point it this way, means. If we live in the United States and we see that finger, we know that finger means something negative. I've heard that this, meaning good job in the US, means up yours in Australia. You're telling somebody to stick it up the bum or the rear end, which is a negative thing. But you see how that works. People, when they're part of culture, they decide what the symbols mean. And when you grow up in that environment, you are taught through socialization, which we'll talk about in the next chapter, the way we learn and internalize culture. You're taught that this is a bad finger. So that's an example of how symbols work. Now, symbols can also consist of objects like the American flag that represents freedom and patriotism, love of country, or even body language or gestures like facial expressions. Imagine you're having a conversation with your friend and you're telling your friend how terrible a day you've had, how bad things have been for you. And during the conversation, as you're telling your friend this, your friend gives you a look like this. Now, what did my face just say? I rolled my eyes, and I did that. I didn't say a word, but this said everything. My face just said, oh, please, I'm over it. All you do is complain. I'm sick of you, whatever. Whatever I said was conveyed in a negative way because that's what that face means. And that face is enough to stop that conversation mid-sentence where your friend would say, hey, what's the problem? You don't like what I'm saying? You see how that works? So sometimes people communicate without saying a word. You ever heard of the poker face? The poker face is when you don't show expression no matter what. So when people play poker, part of poker, and I don't know the game that well, is to bluff, to make your opponent feel that you've got a better hand of cards than you actually have. So they shouldn't be able to read your face. They can't read your expression. Now, some of us are very good at the poker face. You can't tell what the person is thinking. My husband is great at it. I could be having a conversation with him, and there's no emotion on his face. So sometimes I might say, do you hear me? I mean, do you understand? Because he's not going, like most of us do, to let the speaker know that we follow. But if the person is just going, mute expression, we don't know how to read the person. Very few of us have mastered the poker face. That's why the best poker players have mastered that face. And my husband does play poker on occasion. Now let's talk about culture shock. Culture shock refers to personal disorientation or confusion when experiencing an unfamiliar way of life. Like if you travel to another country, how they live, what they eat, how it smells, how they interact might be confusing to you because it's very different than your way of life. Remember, experiencing an unfamiliar way of life. So if you're not familiar with that culture, you may be shocked or confused by what you see.